Chainsaw Man is the manga that wanted to stand out among a sea of other stories in Shonen Jump, and I think we can safely say at this point that it definitely achieved that. Now all we have left to do is sit and patiently wait for the anime and part 2, which I am practically craving, so I thought I'd fill this time and ask the question, why do we love Chainsaw Man? Personally, I feel like it can be hard to explain sometimes, but for this video I've done my best to talk about all the things that we love about it or that I love about it. This is an open discussion as always. I want to hear what you guys love about it too, so maybe comment below your favourite moment from the series, or maybe tell me what else you love about Chainsaw Man. This should be obvious, but there's also going to be a lot of spoilers in this video. So before we get into the thick of it, I'd like to take a moment to introduce my guest, so why don't you go ahead and say hello.
Hello there everyone, I'm Helmut here today to help show some love to CSM. Let's get to it.
Right, so I feel there's no better place to start really than our horny main character who, you know, just wants some hentai with senpai, but to be honest, he's one of the reasons that I love Chainsaw Man so much. I feel like he has this kind of seinen relatability around him, and I think that's just because he has those basic goals and doesn't really have like a proper direction because of, you know, the state of his childhood and the way he grew up. It's actually kind of a weird coming of age tale for him, and I think it comes down to the fact that his shitty upbringing gave him those major attachment issues, loneliness, etc, etc. So that's why he really craves this female attention, especially at the beginning of the story. Basically, I'm pretty sure Denji has some big mummy issues, but for me, him being a horny bastard makes sense, being a teenage boy and all. It seems like all the other shonen protagonists are on some no-fap type mission, hoarding testosterone to try and beat the big bad guy and become the Wizard King, which sure is a good goal to have, but I love Denji for not being like this, as I feel like he acts more realistically, and so I can relate to him a bit more, and his development is pretty good too, because he realizes that touching boobies isn't all that great unless you really share a connection with the person. Well, I don't know how you guys feel about that, maybe I'm wrong. So yeah, it comes full circle because Denji really desires real love, and he realizes that his love for Makima isn't true love, which is ironic because Makima truly loves him, well, not him, but you know, Chainsaw Man. Another small thing that I really liked right at the beginning of Chainsaw Man was Denji saving Pochita's life. It was just funny to me that Denji offers up his body so Pochita can have a normal life and a normal death, which is something that a devil hunter would really want, but ends up being offered to the devil, which I think gives some good insight into their coming relationship. And Denji isn't the only great character in Chainsaw Man.
I won't come out and say that CSM has the best sidecast in all of shonen, I just don't think it does. It's a story that's very centered on Denji and Makima. However, the sidecast is still severely underrated. I wouldn't be able to do justice if I just talked about everyone, so I'm just going to focus on some of my favorites. So let's just start with the main antagonist. Spoiler alert, Makima. She's a spectacular antagonist for this series. In a story so filled with a cast of wacky characters, nothing feels more unsettling than the calm and collected nature of Makima. Chapter 73 shows best how scary she can be. She will get what she wants no matter what. She's always a step ahead of everyone else, and is one of the best shonen villains in a long time. Power might be incredibly annoying at first, but she has just as much development as Denji. The way that she will grow on most readers is seen through the character polls. There's a reason she's the fan favorite. Aki might seem like the cool guy focused on revenge, but he's so much more. He lost his family, and what brings him closure wasn't revenge. It was his newfound family in Power and Denji. He could have so easily been just another revenge-crazed edgelord, but instead he became one of the most tragic Big Brother type characters. And Kishibe, this man is such a badass. By nature of the power system, older characters aren't that common, since the cost of contracting devils is absurdly high. So that tells you how much of a badass this dude is. His apathy towards everything is really fresh for the mentor character as well. Himeno makes a larger impact on me as a character than most that have twice her screen time do. Unfortunately, she's the most emphatic character in a manga that does not care much for how good a person you are. Beam is best boy, and if you disagree, you probably don't have a heart. Also best mount in the history of manga. Quanshi I don't care much for, but Cosmo, that twist on who she is was so spectacular, and one of the most hype moments in the entire manga. And Reize, well, she's kind of diet Makima. She's so manipulative, and unlike Makima, I fell for her manipulation. I thought she would be the good cop to Makima's bad cop, the healthy relationship to contrast with Makima. But no, I guess she's another great villain? Honestly, there aren't really villains in this story, but she makes for a great antagonist, and her arc was my favorite on the manga. And somehow, someway, Kobeni manages to stick around and grow on you. If Power makes a strong impression and changes your perception on her over time, Kobeni is the character you never knew you liked until you reflect back on it and see how much her role as the most human character in CSM helps make everyone else shine. Are Makima and Denji the best two characters? Yes, but that just serves to prove how great of a antagonist-protagonist duo they are. Because this cast isn't by any means top-heavy. CSM has a deep cast of characters that aren't just walking tropes. That is quite impressive for a manga that only lasted around 100 chapters so far.
And the backstories of all these characters, especially the devil hunters, feel like they really are living out their lives in this fucked up world. And the actual world itself is another thing I love about CSM. Now, I'm pretty sure Fujimoto was off his nut on something when he came up with the whole world and power system, but it's outrageous in just the best way possible. The fact that the devils represent fears is already cool enough for me, but I like that it doesn't just use physical fears like the guns and nukes, but also psychological fears like control or the future, as well as the different types of devils, which I won't bore you with, you know them, fiends, hybrids, full devils, that sort of malarkey. The only thing I'm kind of sad about is that we got left with a ton of great stuff that could have been explored more. For example, the Four Horsemen, the primordial devils, you know, I don't want to speak too soon, but maybe with part 2 on its way, they might get padded out a bit more. We'll just have to see. I'm also hoping we get to see a bit more of the actual society too, as that was something that took my interest because of the amount of thoughts that just came to life in my brain. It's a society where people live in fear of the devils, but then that just ends up making the devils stronger. That might seem obvious, but then that leads me on to the devil hunters that make contracts with the devils, and then it makes me think about how people's fears could actually strengthen the devils under the control of the devil hunters. It's just a mental thing to think about. And I feel like there could be a lot of complex themes of society that I would just personally like to see explored more. One complaint that I do see, which I guess is more on the story side, but it kind of links in with the world, is the complaints of the character deaths in CSM. A lot of people said they felt numb to the deaths because there were too many, but come on man, we're warned essentially right at the beginning of the manga that these devil hunters live short traumatic lives. So I think it would be a stupid choice to give everyone plot armor, and I love it for not going down that route. The characters that died always seem to die at a peak moment in development too, which is pretty fucking savage of Fujimoto. The deaths hit hard for me, especially the ways the characters died and the paneling used, which actually brings me on to the art style.
People tend to look at the art style of CSM and feel either of two ways about it. They either really love it or despise it completely. It's rare to see people not have some sort of opinion on it. And isn't that the whole point of art? That it makes you feel something? The way it conveys movement even when working with rigid poses, the unsettling nature of how scratchy and gritty it can get, and how that manages to perfectly translate the nature of the twisted characters that fill this world. I stand firmly by the group that loves it. I couldn't think of a style more fitting than what we get to witness drawn in all its sketchy glory. It's not lack of technique, just look at the background work, or the structure and anatomy, the masterful composition. It's clear this guy knows very well what he's doing. He knows and wants it to be read as a mess. He isn't afraid to delve into the uncanny valley head first, and he just doesn't give a fuck.
And that attitude for the art style really feeds into the absurdity of Chainsaw Man. My favourite part of all is that Chainsaw Man has this charisma around it that I can only explain as a harmony. A harmony of absurdity and emotion. I've never had a manga or anime for that matter make me watch a dude ride a shark through a city one chapter and then have me bawling my eyes out at the next. And from what I can tell, that's down to a couple things. Although people say it's a shonen which isn't a shonen, to be honest, its actual storyline and structure feels very shonen-y. Is that a word? Anyway, it's a good kid with a devil inside him. It's actually almost cliche in that sense. Denji also behaves pretty naively at times, and although he doesn't have those big dreams of being God or the next Bill Gates or something like that, he still views the world in a sort of childish way at times, and that makes it feel like it still has that heart of a shonen deep down. Then this matched with like the gore fest that feels like I'm watching a Tarantino movie just gives it that special vibe that makes Chainsaw Man Chainsaw Man. And I'll now hand you over to Helma for the final part talking about the theme of control, but maybe not in the way you'd initially expect.
Everyone and their mother has done a video on how the theme of control is explored through Makima at this point. She is the control devil for a reason. She's a master manipulator who was always 2 steps ahead. But honestly, I'm bored to hear about it. Yes, the twist was amazing, but you know what? That's not even the tip of the iceberg. Every major character arc is related to this theme, and more often than not in the Makima was behind everything way. Instead, all of these characters choose to shackle themselves to something or someone, of their own volition. Aki to the gun devil and to his deceased family, Power to her cat and eventually to Denji as well, Denji to Makima, and even Makima to the chainsaw devil. And if you think I'm stretching things just to try and make a point, just think about it. Makima's power is useless unless you believe she's above you. If you don't believe her to have power over you, then she won't. CSM in general is about breaking free of control. But not just from external control as most of the discussion tends to go, but also that internal control, the self-made rules you force upon yourself. And it does so masterfully. And that is not all. No, it explores yet another form of control, the control your own subconscious has over you. And it isn't even subtle. Just think of all the times they talk about how ignorance is bliss or how I wouldn't feel sad for their death if only I didn't know shit about it. And that's because the truth will always become another shackle to tie you down. And those two are the less talked about parts of how CSM explores the theme of control. Not the control which is forced upon you, but that which you force upon yourself.
That pretty much wraps it up, folks. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe down below and maybe leave a like or a dislike. I'll also leave a link to Hellmouth's channel in the description if you maybe want to check out his stuff, and remember to drink some water and take it easy. Peace.